All right, and that brings us to our program tonight. July brings Bella Vista Radio Club's own Vinson Carter, and that's Vinson, not Vincent, and WV5C to the speakers platform with a topic that will be enjoyed by everyone, and especially our members who are newcomers to amateur radio. The topic will be amateur radio from a rookie's point of view. Vinson is also the Bella Vista Radio Club's Elmer 911 coordinator and does a super job with managing that program. He's a Northwest Arkansas native. He's always been curious about amateur radio. He also enjoys other hobbies such as playing music, electronics, and making and tinkering. In early 2019, he read a report that piqued his interest concerning the upcoming FCC import ban on Baofeng WV5R radios. He immediately bought a couple of them and quickly realized that he wanted to learn how to actually use them. He had mentioned getting a ham license to his brother-in-law, Jerry, W5JRO. Jerry convinced him to begin studying with the goal of taking the test that summer. Well, Vinson and Jerry both received their technician tickets in July of 2019. Vinson's first call sign was KI5FPC, and he immediately applied for a vanity call K5VCA. Vinson passed his general in January 2019 and then his amateur extra in June 2020. Vinson enjoys participating in local nets and has enjoyed having the opportunity to serve as net control stations for the wide area net for the past 2 years. He loves contesting. Him and his brother-in-law, Jerry, and niece participated in the ARRL Rookie Roundup, and they got second place, and we all believe they really got first place. Anyway, Vinson is always looking forward to learning more about this great hobby. A warm Bella Vista Radio Club welcome for Vinson Carter.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you, sir. Hey, everyone. Usually when I get to make a presentation, it's about something that I know a lot about. And I don't know a lot about radio, but I love it. Yes, sir?
This is going to be on the test.
This will not be on the test. So it's funny because I think Tom gave half my presentation. I was going to tell you about how why I got into it. I saw that Don had put that in the Signal, but I did read this little blurb on, I like this survival blog. I'm not trying to sell it, but I kind of look at it. They actually have a lot of really good little articles about amateur radio, but June 2019, I think just hearing that I won't be able to do something, I don't know. You could say that my wife and I have the motto of our marriage is don't tell me what to do. And anyway, so I bought some of these. I gave one to my brother-in-law, Jerry, and in June, and I looked how to take the test. And it turned out that, I'm going to talk about Joe Walsh here in a second, we needed to do that. So we did that. Before we got these radios and started playing around with them, I thought, this will be fun. I saw that the whole reason they're getting banned is it uses FRS and it's against the law. But we realized real quickly we could tune in some nets and listen. And I was like, we got to learn how to do this. I knew nothing about amateur radio. Jerry knew a whole lot because he grew up in kind of a ham family. Both his parents are extras. And I'd like to thank Jerry for being here tonight to hear me talk. He's not here, actually. But do you guys know, you know who this is, Joe Walsh? Probably, and I've told this story to a couple people kind of asking if they had maybe some background, but I knew nothing about amateur radio except for a discussion I had with Joe Walsh one time and how he talked about amateur radio and what it meant to him. I remember when I was a kid, my grandfather had a friend that he was probably like I don't know, this is before Napster and LimeWire. He had this great radio room. He had some amateur radio stuff over in the corner. My granddad wasn't interested in that. He was more interested in how he could pirate some Bob Wills records or something. And so we'd go over there and he would show me some things. But if anybody musicians in here, you might remember Musicians Pro Shop in Springdale was it's been like 20 plus years probably since they've been open, but me and my friend JJ, we loved spending every dime we had when we were younger on tube amps. And JJ found this Vox AC30 that was just the coolest amp ever. And this is before they reissued those amplifiers. Nobody had one in Northwest Arkansas. And they would call us every once in a while for different amps and say, hey, so-and-so's coming to Fayetteville. Would you guys rent your amp for backline gear? And sometimes we got to do that. But JJ got a call one day that Joe Walsh was coming to town, wanted to borrow his AC30, and what did he want, to rent the amp? And he said, I just want to bring my buddy down and we want to drink a beer with Joe Walsh. And we didn't know, this is before, we all had the internet in our pocket. He didn't have a beer with us, but he drank a cup of coffee. That was really cool. So it turns out he was going to play with the Kate brothers at the Clarion Inn, which is no longer there, but down at the Clarion Inn, and he was just going to kind of sit in with them. It was the 50th high school reunion for Fayetteville High School. And I told Ron this story the other day, and he said he probably knew who that was, but somebody in this room may actually know who the ham that got Joe Walsh to come play with him was. But he had a friend in that graduating class that he had mentioned to him, talking on the radio, that his 50th reunion's coming up, the Kate brothers are going to play, and it was kind of like, oh, I remember those guys. And he basically said, you want to come play with them? I bet they would love that. And he did it. And so we went down at like noon or something. He flew in. This is even before XNA, I think was around. So probably Drake Field, and sat down at the Clarion bar. We had a beer. He had a cup of coffee, and he told us all about amateur radio. And it kind of stuck with me, the idea that he would travel from California, or I don't know if he was touring those days, but just for a friend that he'd never met this guy in person. He had just talked to him on the radio, and he would come all the way to play that show. And I remember thinking, that's pretty cool. But that's kind of the only thing that I knew about radio. Ron, do you remember? I can't remember. I didn't write that down. Or does anybody know who that might be? You said it might be a silent key, or most likely? Okay. I thought somebody might be like, oh, I bet that was so-and-so. But kind of a fun story. Got to meet Joe Walsh. He signed the speakers and the amp, and I wish it was my amp and I had that, but it was fun. So fast forward to the next month, basically June, Jerry and I had bought these radios, and we both passed our technician's exam, and so our wives were thrilled because we got a new hobby. And so about that time, we were kind of up to our ears in remodels. This is his house. He's got an old farmhouse from the 1870s that we were remodeling, and it actually looked like that. We were learning how to do stained glass so we could replace some of the original windows and the doors. And my wife and I, we had just had our first child, and Boyd was born. So we're like super busy, but we needed a new hobby, and like we needed, my wife says I have too many hobbies, but that's okay because she doesn't have a lot, and she likes to kind of enjoy mine. Although I can't get her to get an amateur radio license. I don't know. But we found out really quickly that the Baofeng radios were great, and actually I think they're pretty wonderful, especially if you put a mag mount antenna on there. But I learned real quickly I wanted to get like a real radio. And I think that when I took this test, as those of you that are new hams, and I'm just curious, how many people have had a license for like less than 3 years? Okay, there's a few of us. So I'm going to celebrate, I guess, my 3rd anniversary this month here, next week, I guess. And I had in my mind that it was going to, it's going to look like this. My little clicker's not going so well. Let's try this again. I thought it was going to look something like this. I love tube amps. Not that I know a lot about replacing them, but, popping in some new tubes, just the glow and the warmth and the sound. And that's what I really envisioned. and or maybe something like this. Oh man, this thing's not working so great, but yeah, I like this Schlitz ad. You know, my wife bringing me a cold beer in front of the nice warm amplifiers. I wish I had an amplifier, but I really had that in mind. And it turned out it's not at all like that. And I looked up these guys, W5XH and K5DB. These are their QRZ profile picks. Pretty nice, huh? It's way more high tech. And in my mind, I have to do a lot of computer stuff at work. And I like this idea of the analog side. But I learned really quickly, man, you got to have a computer. If you want to get the most out of everything, learning about radio, you need that computer monitor kind of front and center. And I don't even have an analog radio, so I don't know if I'd really want one. Maybe later on, I'd really like to have a nicer digital radio. Maybe a nice tube amp would be nice one day. But in my mind, I had that idea that things were going to be pretty low tech, and it's not at all like that. So anybody else have that same experience? They thought it was going to be pretty low tech. You did? I don't know. And Greg's talking about building all kinds of cool little projects that are definitely not so low tech, right? High tech. So as I got into the hobby, I did get a little base station for my house, which I didn't have to sit out on the deck. I didn't have to put a mag mount up on my metal roof. That was fantastic. I didn't have a great amplifier. I still had the mag mount on my roof, but I ran a cable inside and I could sit there and talk, and that was great. And the first thing I learned was, you know, to really learn more, I needed to listen. You guys know the proverb about even a fool seems wise when he's silent. And that's kind of the motto for my life. I like to just listen to everybody else talk, and people will think I'm smart or something like that. But the wide area net was a big thing. It was on Wednesdays back then at 9 o'clock. And I think you can kind of see this piece of cardboard. I got a tip, and I'm going to say for anybody that's new to the hobby, there was a guy named Shane that was on the radio all the time. Tim, it seemed like you were talking to him all the time, and I just listened to you guys a lot. Yeah. And I don't know what happened to him. Another thing I know about the hobby is it seems like there's people that are on the repeaters a lot, and then they disappear, and that's kind of sad. But I also look around the room, and there's a lot of people that are really consistent. But I listened a lot, and I didn't do a lot of talking, but I heard Shane actually telling another guy that the best way to get better with names and call signs is take a box and rip it up and stick it on your wall and start writing everybody's calls down. And I think I did that. In fact, Ron, I think, is K5XK. He's like the first call sign I wrote down up there. But he was net control on the wide area net, and he like acted like he was interested in me a little bit, and that I was new and was kind. It was fantastic. Ron, you were a great net control, man. I wish you would do that more often. But he acted like, you know, hey, you're new. Let me give you some. He gave me some friendly advice. It was fantastic, and that's really one of the reasons why I've asked my wife if I can make, well, now Tuesdays, but Wednesday night was kind of set aside for that time to play a little radio. And I thought this was great, though. I wrote down, there's Glenn right there, WB5L. I just started writing down people's names and call signs and little notes about them. And I also put a little frequency list. That came later, but and my call sign changed a few times. I wrote that up there so I'd remember I had a new call sign. There's nothing better than having a cheat sheet. But that's probably the best advice I'd give to a new ham is I tried to do it on a spreadsheet on my computer, but there's nothing easier than just writing on a piece of cardboard and being able to look up real quick and glance and remember. One time I had another piece of cardboard where I kind of wrote down what I should say. And I learned that by just listening to other people. So guys, I know we have so many experienced hams in here, but I'm doing this from a real newbie perspective. But that was one of the things that I thought was pretty helpful for me. In my journey that summer, so got that license in July. In August, I saw I work at the university, and I saw that they had this lunch meeting. And By the way, Rick does that. He's fantastic at advertising everything ham radio related. But I showed up at the lunch meeting, and I think I met Bill at that meeting. And I just got some lunch and went in, and I didn't know anything. But I did meet this young man, K5 DVT, that I'd heard all the time on the repeaters. And it turns out he was like 19 years old. Here I thought he was, I don't know. I guess we'd say old man in ham speak. And it was fantastic. And then all of a sudden, I kind of felt like I could ask him anything, even things that were kind of silly questions. And I asked him some of the craziest things you can imagine, mainly about my little Chinese handheld that I had in the car, going back and forth, just listening. And so that was really, 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 really nice. Another thing, Rick, you advertised this well, but I got to tell you, I love the calendar. So the calendar was one of those things that was a game changer for me, to just be able to figure out who's going to be on when, and to get on there and listen and to try to check into other nets. I didn't have a lot of opportunities outside of that Wednesday night, but that was something that was pretty helpful for me. I've checked into the little Switzerland net they have every morning. Anybody know about that?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's fantastic. The community that they get up and they just talk about their day. It's really fun. It's fun to listen to people on the radio because it's kind of like a small, brotherhood of friends. And I love that, love it. And I learned about all kinds of other things, like when the next test was going to be given. I put that on my calendar. I didn't have time to study as school was starting, but that was kind of a big thing. And I started finding out that there's a whole other world beyond the repeaters, the idea of HF. And I think probably Rick told me about Don had told me when I originally tested about the Bella Vista Amateur Radio Club and encouraged me to come up there. He's like, there's 100 people. It's fantastic. And somebody had told me that they were going to be talking about high altitude balloons. And I always try to take my hobbies and bring them into work. That's one of the cool things about my job as a professor and I teach future teachers. And so I always try to you want to bring those interests in so that people can learn how to bring those interests into their classroom. I was asking John Williams all kinds of questions about how to launch high altitude balloons. I thought there would be nothing cooler than being able to do this with a group of students, to get up above that curvature of the earth. It's still on my bucket list. I haven't done it. I hope we can do that at BVRC, maybe with a local school. But the first BVRC meeting I went to was Fred Kimmerer, and turns out he wasn't actually there at the church in Bella Vista. He was via Skype, I think, but it was fantastic, and it got me really excited. And the first thing I did was I applied for a mini grant, and I got all the stuff to do a high altitude balloon launch, except I don't have helium, and I need some people to help me. I also learned that the amateur radio is kind of one of the elements of that. I did get an APRS transmitter that can go on the balloon. I'd love to talk to anybody about that. I'm always looking for things to happen. Of course, this was in like early 2020, and we all know what happened really shortly after there. In schools, the world shut down for a while. So I haven't had a chance to do that, but it's definitely on my bucket list. Does anybody have any experience with that, high altitude balloons? I'm just curious. Anybody want to do that? All right. That's going to happen at some point here in the near future. I've got a school, actually Shaw Elementary. There's a fantastic teacher there, Lisa Taylor. She just won the Presidential Award for Science Teaching. We talked about that the other day. She's gung-ho about it. We're going to do that this year. I don't know how I'm going to get the balloon out of the tree if it lands in a tree, but I'm looking for some good climbers. I'm not one of those. I'm kind of scared of heights. That's another thing you could say that I've learned is a lot of the things I'm scared about, I really need to be better at, especially climbing towers. One day I want to have a tower, and I've never been good with heights, but that's all right. I do have a tower. It's on the ground right now. And I also learned that getting into radio is like learning a whole nother language. And you get your license, and which felt really good. I got that tech license. I didn't know any of that stuff or what anything meant. In fact, I was talking to some other club members the other day about, it seems like to me the tech test should probably not be anything technical, just kind of etiquette, code of ethics. I think that would be fantastic. I wish I had powers for that. But and then as you learn a little bit, getting to operate, it would be fantastic if you could get into the kind of the more technical things. But I've always been pretty good at taking tests and memorizing answers, and that's how I got there, I guess you could say. But if you're a new ham and you haven't seen Ham Radio for Dummies or read that book, it's fantastic. I love dummy books. I'm a big fan. When I learned how to be a beekeeper, I read Beekeeping for Dummies. And I'm going to share a link for all the new hams, or I don't know, somebody might be interested in something I talk about tonight. I made a cheat sheet. It's kind of like my bookmarks on the computer. And I made a Google Doc, so it's real easy. I'll have a QR code up in a second if anybody wants to look at that. But there's a link. You can look at that online, actually read the book. You can download the PDF. I don't know if it's expired, but there's several places you can do that. But I would highly recommend that Ham Radio for Dummies. And it's quite often I actually go back to that to try to look up something. And but as far as the language thing, I don't think I realized just how big kind of this divide was. And whether it's ham slang, the history of things, Q codes, radios, antennas. Man, there's a lot to learn for new folks. And for those of us, I say those, I'm still a new ham for sure. In fact, even for me, would you be patient? And if I start doing that. In fact, I found myself doing that the other day at Field Day. I helped K5DB over in Alpena. And I find myself doing that. I've learned these slang terms, these Q codes, and I throw things out there and kids look at you like, what? In fact, I put this DX sign up there because I had a conversation at I think the second BVRC meeting that I went to about DX, like a whole 30-minute conversation, and I had to go home and look up what the DX meant. And anyways. There's a lot to it, and probably the biggest thing that I've learned is phonetics are important. It's good to, in fact, on one of my little cheat sheets I've got posted up above my radio is the phonetic alphabet. I think that's maybe the one thing I've got down these days, but phonetics are important and make things much, much easier. And anybody watch Last Man Standing? I love that show, but like Tim Allen, I thought this was really funny. The QSL, my rig. Anyways, I like little funny cartoons. But if we can think about maybe bridging that divide with brand new hams, I think that's good. And I'm not saying that people were harsh to me or anything, but maybe just not assuming that everybody knows those types of things. From my perspective. And amateur radio is good for neuron development, if you will. But acronyms, even in my field of education, man, it's like a whole nother language. And I bet in your workplace, it's the same thing. You start talking to somebody outside of the field, and it's very much like that. The other thing that I've learned from a rookie perspective is the importance of an Elmer. Man, my clicker's flying by. And I looked up the origin of the Elmer. It's actually not that old of a term, and I say not that old, like the 70s. In I think CQ magazine, this idea of helping newbies or prospective hams. And I got to thank everybody, especially like K5XH and K5DB and W5XNA. I've asked them some silly things. They've come to my house and helped me. KG5MWG, he's helped me with different things. Good night. It's fantastic to have an Elmer. And I also learned from K5DB that one day it was at the Shiloh Museum, and he was talking about his Elmer, Gene, and I can't remember Gene's call sign, and I thought, well, you've known Gene for that long? And Don said, no, he's my Elmer for Wyndham antennas. And it's like you have an Elmer that's specialized in different things. I thought that was kind of cool. for all different types of things. So you can have a lot of different Elmers, but that's the most important thing. And I think for myself, in fact, Don, when I took my technician test, gave me a little scrap of paper with his email address on it and said, hey, I live in Springdale too. Call me anytime you want, and if you have any questions. And I put it in my wallet, and I put it in my pocket, and I actually pulled it out after I passed my general test and said, hey, is this you? You gave me this. And I wish anything I probably would have just asked him from the beginning. And I think that's one of the cool things about our hobby is that people like to help others out. And I wish I would have asked for assistance maybe earlier to get a little bit of that help. But don't be afraid to ask for help when you're new. I also learned real quick, in January I took my general, and I'd actually been, my family is wonderful. My brother-in-law Jerry that I mentioned, he actually got my dad in, if you can get my dad in on an idea, everybody will go along with it. So he said, hey, let's get Vinson a radio for his birthday. Let's get everybody to chip in on it. And sure enough, they bought me a radio. It was really cool. It was a Yaesu FT450, which is a fantastic birthday present. I didn't know anything about it, except I think Jerry had asked his dad what would be a good kind of, what's the best bang for the buck kind of thing. And so I had this radio, but I didn't have an antenna. I couldn't really use it because 10 meters there was nothing really on it. I think I had tried to stretch out a wire that didn't really work so far, but this is my Elmer, I guess you could say. I bought a G5 RV, and when I got my General, I asked my Elmer over there, K5DB, if he could help me because it wasn't working very good. A G5 RV, and I'd ordered it online and just read a little bit about it. He came over and says, oh, send that thing back. We're going to make you a Carolina Wyndham. And sure enough, he helped me. He had me order a Ballon and an isolator. It's fantastic. And some of you guys probably are laughing because Don's like, he preaches the Carolina Wyndham, but it's amazing. The fact that I can talk to people all over the world with this simple little wire antenna up in my trees, it's fantastic. Still wish I had an amplifier, but it works great. And so asking for help, finding somebody that can help you, that Elmer, I think is just a wonderful thing. And I'm a big fan. I will tell you right now, and I don't know a lot about antennas, but the simple dipole, it's so great. You can throw it up in a tree and it works. You can put it in just about any orientation, although the flat top, luckily I have some trees and it can go right across my metal roof high enough it doesn't have interference, but it's fantastic. When I got into HF, I was hooked. I thought, this is great. I was listening to people all over the world. I love to travel. I can't say that I know a lot of geography, but I learned really quick that how bad my geography was because I was looking up call signs. I was trying to figure out where these places were. There's CQ zones, and it was madness. But I learned real quick, ham radio is a fantastic way to learn geography. And that was a big surprise to me. But it was great because one, I was talking to people in countries that I didn't even know where they were and having to look those things up. So learning along the way, I love to learn, and I had no idea that geography would play such a big part, nor having a nice map on the wall that can tell you those things. And I think at one of the Ozark Wireless Society meetings, San Hudson gave me a CQ zone map, and I slapped that thing on the wall, and it was nice to be able to look real quick, and it even had prefixes on there, and fantastic. So I'm getting into this around January, February, March of 2020, and for Father's Day, I asked my wife, I know I'm way in the future. It was a couple months ahead. I said, hey, if you're thinking about something for Father's Day, I keep hearing about this FT8. And say what you will, I know there's some people that love it or hate it, but I'll tell you what, the timing for me in 2020 with FT8 was perfect. So somehow she had ordered this thing a couple months ahead of time and had it, and she wasn't going to give it to me, but I think it was probably April. She went ahead and gave me my Father's Day present. That's only a couple months, right? Early. And most people were working from home at that time. I was teaching online, which, terrible. But seemed to have a lot more time on my hands, so I could have one monitor up working some FT8 and one monitor up, writing an article or something like that. But that kind of changed my whole thinking of, man, I can do a whole lot of things outside of just talking to people. And so I hate to say who hates FT8 in here, but if you encourage new people, that's something that might be really interesting to them, especially young folks. I think it's kind of like playing a game. I look at it as kind of a fishing expedition. In fact, I'll leave my radio on all night, and if I have to get up and go to the bathroom, I'll see if there's any countries that I haven't gotten or worked, and it was great. So I hate to say the FT8's hard at work, but if anybody has FT8 at home or in their office, man, fantastic, kind of multitasking. So that was a big thing that really got me interested probably in figuring out something else. Before that, I'd heard people talking about these digital modes, and it didn't really appeal to me at all. And maybe because I didn't have time, I wanted to talk to people. That's a little bit more fun for me, but that was kind of a game changer. It changed my mind about all kinds of things. In fact, Dave and I were talking about WinLink. By the way, if anybody knows WinLink, he has some questions for you. And I'm going to send an email out to the Elmer 911 group, but I'm just going to put that. Dave, can you raise your hand? And if anybody has WinLink, if you can talk to him, he had it working great. It's not working. But I'm really interested in that too. Now that I know that, hey, to be successful in radio, it's good to have a computer. The WinLink thing, I've gotten it to work a little bit. I need to tweak it out and make it work, and I can't answer your questions. Computers are the bane of our existence as well, right? So, getting back into having computers in front of you, I put some links on my little cheat sheet for new ham essentials, and I was just going to talk about some things that have been really good for me. Hopefully, I'm slow to the game, but I didn't really know about QRZ, except I'd hear people on the radio talking about it. Are you good on QRZ? I've heard QRZ used in so many different forms and fashions. I'm still not exactly sure what the official meaning of it is. I kid, but really it seems like people use that a lot of different ways. But it's the Facebook or social media of amateur radio. It's amazing. Those pictures of Murray and Donna had on there, it's off their profile page. And some people are less likely to put pictures. Some people will have 10 pages of family photos and where they went on vacation. I think it's fun to look people up, and you get a call sign, you put a face with a call or a voice. For me, I would say, making yourself a QRZ profile. I can't say I have anything very much on there, but at least I put a picture and a little bit about the equipment, because that's another thing that I learned real quick. People like to talk about, and sometimes if you can look them up and you actually know what they're talking about if they have equipment listed on there. I thought that was kind of fun. So QRZ, I'm guessing that everybody probably has a QRZ page, but just in case, Repeater Book is fantastic to look up. I stumbled on Repeater Book really quick. There's a great app to be able to use for that, but if you haven't used Repeater Book, and I'm sorry to all those people that are rolling their eyes thinking, oh man, this is total rookie stuff, but they're things that I had to learn along the way. I just wanted to mention them. Another thing, I'd hear people talking about how they logged, and I heard a lot of people talking about having a notebook or a composition book or note cards, lots of different things, but I learned really quick talking to people and a lot of people in this room that I needed this thing called N3FJP. I tried some other ones. I can't remember what is it, N1MM, I think, it works great. But I figured out really quick, especially when I decided I loved HF And I like this contest thing. It's like playing a game, especially when you've got the logging software that checks off every state and your DX stations and calculates points. To me, that was kind of fun. I've never been much of a video game person, but I thought that was fantastic. So it does cost a little bit, but as far as being able to do things like sync up to this another thing, the Logbook of the World, here I thought I could use Logbook of the World by itself, and it doesn't really work like that. You need something to kind of send that. That was a big thing, and so that was very helpful for me to, one, because the N3FJP works so seamlessly with Logbook of the World. Logbook of the World's not hard, but it's kind of one of those things. It's nice to be able to read the instructions and follow those things, and just remember that it's going to take some time. You're going to have to get that postcard in the mail, and if anybody's new and needs help with that, I would be glad to help them, because I've helped several people do that now, and I thought that was kind of fun. Another thing that I learned was this idea of QSL cards. It's almost like trading baseball cards when you're a kid, and I thought this was fun. I didn't know anything about that. These are some ones that I got. In fact, I wasn't expecting to get QSL cards or really trade them, but I learned really quickly that people are going to send you QSL cards. And so I made one up on my computer, and I started printing them off if somebody would send me one. And I thought, man, this is expensive. And luckily, some people shared some ways that you can save some money sending those things back, especially if they're not in the continental U.S. and whatnot. And so this is when I said, I need to join the ARRL. And I know we're an affiliated club, but I realize now, like, it's a pretty good deal, especially if you're trading cards. And so if you don't know about this, and as a new ham, this is something that I had no idea. You can do this outgoing QSL card bureau submission form. For just a couple bucks, you can send them a number of cards, and they will take care of that. They'll send it to those managing card folks, and that was super helpful, and saves a lot of money as far as trading cards. And I know I'm talking to folks that probably know a lot, but if that's something that you're interested in and you're new, you definitely want to take advantage of that service, and it's probably worth the membership fee in and of itself, as well as, and I'll share my tip. The first 2 years that I was a member, because in January I renewed, and I got QST, and I thought QST is really cool, but I don't really know a lot of the things people are talking about. It's a little bit over my head. It's technical. So this year in January I switched and got on the air, and I will tell you, if you're a new ham, don't do that. Just keep getting QST, even if you don't know everything that people are talking about. The on the airs, it's kind of like getting highlights. It's not. There's just not a lot of content there, but it's okay. The cool thing about being an ARRL member is the website. You can go in there and you can read on the air, which will take you like 5 minutes, but then you still got that QST to go back to. So when people are on the radio talking about page 73 in QST this month, you can actually look at that and know what they're talking about. So to me, that was kind of something I learned. I've had some people tell me I could probably go in there and change that, but I figure, hey, I can read QST online this year and keep getting on the air and maybe share those with some kids, which is kind of my hope, saving those up. I also learned about when people want to mail you a QSL card, it's kind of expensive. And you can go through, and I did have this on my QRZ page. I recently kind of took it off when I changed to my 2x1 call. I didn't make a new QSL card. I did make one, and I sent a few of those out for the people that I contacted at first, but I changed it. I noticed a lot of people have done that. I like the QSL cards. I think they're novel and fun, but really all I care about is I want that confirmation on Logbook of the World. Does that sound bad? But that's kind of my thing. So I did say that I use the bureau, so the incoming bureau, and I actually got my first envelope a couple months ago, which was fun. I had to go back and print out some more cards and send them to people, but otherwise I had just gotten them directly in the mail. But you can send the Whiskey 5 incoming bureau. I think you send them $5 and through PayPal. And essentially, when you get a certain number of cards, then they'll just send them all to you. And people overseas love that because it's saving them money. If anybody wants to pause and has anything like additional information, feel free to do that. Because like I said, I'm giving a very rookie perspective. But that to me was really great. And apparently, I think I got 10 cards in my envelope. That was the way somebody did it, and they probably knew that because I had listed that on my QRZ page. So the incoming bureau as well as that ARL card service is fantastic. I put links to all these things on my cheat sheet I was talking about in case anybody wants to look at that. I mentioned about that idea of applying for vanities, and I've talked to some people about that. Some people are way against it. They want to keep the original call they got, and that's great. But for me, I realized really quickly when I was trying to break into these pile-ups with just 100 watts, that those 1x2 or 2x1 calls, it seems like they always called on those guys as opposed to trying to get all those letters out. So I got a vanity at first. I was trying to be clever, K5VCA. I thought Vinson Carter in Arkansas because they didn't have my VRC for my middle initial. But I figured that out, and I've helped some people apply for those. Of course, now you have to pay to get a vanity. But I did figure out that it's good to save that FRN number and have that handy. And that's the same place that has everything you need to know about your license. So upgrades and vanities and all those things. And so I put a link on the cheat sheet because I thought that was kind of a good thing to maybe bookmark and maybe even write your password down so you can remember that. And I didn't do that, and it took me a while to get that updated, but finally did that. A couple other bookmarks that I thought have been pretty handy is one, figuring out if you want a new call sign, what's available. And this AE7Q is fantastic. I can look at all the 2x calls or extra calls, I think is what I really wanted to look at specifically. And they will tell you what's available, how long it's going to take. And when I heard about the fee for vanity calls, man, I was on that AE7Q.com every day. And I didn't get I think I applied for 1 million calls, and I finally settled, but I'm pretty happy. The Whiskey Vinson 5 Carter. It's close. And nobody gets it right the first time. And W5HB, John's not here, so I can't give him a hard time. He hadn't got it right yet, but I still like it, especially if I'm trying to break into a pile-up with my little 100 watts. I'm a big fan. So that's something you might keep in mind if you've still got the original call that you have. If you want to do that, if you find that website, check it every day. It also lets you know, like once you've applied for it, how many other people have applied for it and kind of what your chances are, which is kind of nice. I'm not sure how many people are going to be doing that as often as I did because I was applying for something every day. I was even marking my calendar to try to get a decent extra call. So that's one of my links on the cheat sheet. As well as gray line propagation. Seems like such a simple thing, but when somebody mentioned that concept to me and I had no idea that what they were talking about, that kind of changed everything. Thinking about that line and where we are as far as the gray line really kind of dictated a lot of times when I'd get on the radio and when I was going to be able to hear other countries that I maybe not have heard. And so that's a great website. There's tons of propagation websites, but I'm a big fan. I was just talking to somebody else the other day. That whole dx.qsl.net is a fantastic website for propagation info. And like I said, if you don't know what DX is, I didn't even say that when I said I didn't know what that was, and I had this big conversation, but finding other countries was fantastic. I also would listen to people talking about other bands, and so I don't know if anybody knows Ham Universe, but I loved Ham Universe, and this simple explanation of each band and what would be the good times and those types of things with it. And so I love that. and it's a simple cheat sheet. There's tons of other things on the side there in that, but this is kind of my go-to page of, it's summertime and I want to listen to something on 15 meters. What's going to happen here? The other thing, DX Summit, and I know everybody's got their own thing for DX and what works, but DX Summit is amazing, not only for spotting yourself if you're calling CQ on a band, but also just figuring out who's on the air and being able to scroll to that frequency. If you don't have a waterfall like I don't have a waterfall, it's fantastic to say, oh, this guy's from this country's over there. I'll dial that in and see if I can hear him, and maybe I can make a quick contact. So I loved DX Summit. Kind of was a game changer for me. A field day. Has anybody never experienced field day? I'm just curious. Everybody's experienced field day. Field day was, Dennis, you're going to love field day.
Yeah, I was out of town.
Man. So, okay, I made that mistake in 2021, and I won't do it again. I got it on my calendar for next year. We didn't have field day for BVRC, so a few of us got together in Elm Springs City Park and had our own little field day. This is our mini Poor Man D-Expedition tent, but it's fantastic. I'll show you a couple pictures. This is my niece who got her technician when I got my general. She's since upgraded to general, and that's a lot of fun. There's Tom there and Dawn and my brother-in-law Jerry. We had a great time field day. Everybody was social distancing, and we did the same thing, I guess you could say, out there at the park. I realized real quick I'm too old to stay up for 24 hours straight. And so in the last field day, we went over to Alpena, and those of you that were up at the park here, it was hot. And we sweated to death, and it was crazy. But I have to say that that evening, I set up my air mattress underneath this little awning, and I got cold. I don't know if it was because my clothes were sweated through and still kind of wet, but I actually got cold. That front blew in. It was actually really nice and pleasant. So field days are probably one of that first opportunity that I had a chance to really learn a lot about radio. I had an opportunity to help with Jamboree on the air. I love this idea of, as a new ham, it's good for me to break down equipment, have to go set it up somewhere else, and kind of troubleshoot and figure things out. So looking for any opportunity that I can share with people, and that was a lot of fun. I think we'll probably have an opportunity to do that again, and might be looking for volunteers. How am I doing on time, Tom? Good. We're okay. I got a few more pictures I'm gonna share here. HF contests. There are some people that love that. There are some people that are like, contests aren't for me. I figured out I like that. I think that's a lot of fun. The first year, my niece and my brother-in-law and I did the Arkansas QSO party on our own. We used my call because I had a general first, I think, and it was great, fantastic. In July, and I didn't get to do that. I was out of town this weekend, but over the 4th of July, there's the 13 Colonies special event. For those, I know there's that term chasing paper and putting paper on the wall, and that's cool. I just like the idea of the fact to say, hey, I worked all 13 colonies. So I got to do that a couple years. I thought that was really fun. But Rookie Roundup for newbies is probably the best experience that I got to have as a newbie. And I'll show you a couple pictures here of us getting to do that. The first year we were really spoiled. In 2020, we got to go over to K5DB's shack, and that's where that picture of Clara that was in QST came from. We got to go over there and we got to operate with a real radio. You can't use an amp, it's just a 100-watt contest, but to have an antenna on top of a tower and point that thing where you want, I knew what I want one day. And it was a whole nother level of experience, and it was a lot of fun. And just one, to learn how to use the software a little bit better and kind of figure those things out. We're going to do this again next year, and I'm going to get to be a coach, and I'm excited about that. So this is my third year to get to do Rookie Roundup. I'm just going to show you this because it's kind of funny. And our first year over at K5DB's, we had like 8,000 points, and I'm not worried about the points so much. The second year, I think we did it at my house, in my shack, with my real simple wire 100-watt setup. We only had like 1,800 points, but I was really proud. We had a great time. Operated the whole 6 hours. It was fantastic. This year we had our coach back again, and we did pretty good. We got like 19,000 points. And that was, for us, that was a lot of fun, just constant contacts. I think the secret weapon is if you can get your girlfriend, your wife, a friend, people really like to talk to YLs. So secret weapon. I like the contest thing, doing the things in a, oh, Robert's got the secret weapon, yes. And it's kind of funny because, well, Clara can have a whole pile up going on, and then she's like, I got to go get a drink of water and step away, and I'll get on there, and it's like, it's complete crickets. Okay, so everybody knows that. That was a new thing for me. I don't know what that is, but it's fantastic to have my niece. She's going off to college, so I will have to find another secret weapon. We got to go over to K5XH's place and try Riddy, which was really fun. They have a Riddy Rookie Roundup, and I know Mark's hosted. Didn't you have somebody come last year? I know we didn't do that. No?
No, I don't think so. It's coming up the end of August.
Okay.
Next month.
Okay. So I guess I have to retire from the Rookie Roundup, but man, that's the most fun I've had, getting to do that. I wish I could. I think Clara still has maybe one more year she can do that, but that was a fantastic experience. So I'm really excited. Even though I don't have great equipment or anything really fancy, I would love to bring some new folks over to my shack and help them participate in Rookie Roundup. That was a lot of fun. We even tried sweepstakes, which the three of us from our house, and I thought we did okay. That was fun. Just to kind of look up and see what kind of certificates. I didn't blow that up so you can't see how small that score is, but sweepstakes is a whole nother level that's kind of stressful. I think I was warned about that. People maybe are not quite as kind as they are in Rookie Roundup. It's a whole nother level. So I mentioned this Arkansas QSO party thing, and we got to be part of the Razorback Contest Club, and I'm just going to show you a couple pictures. We got to do a special event station. In 5A was the 185th anniversary of Arkansas statehood. You could probably do the 187th anniversary. I love special events. You can make a special event for everything. And it's like once there's a special event station, people want to talk to you. And the idea of applying for that one-by-one call, it's fantastic. But I want to share this, and Ron mentioned this earlier, to kind of end us out here. And I got just a couple more things. And I like to talk, and I don't want to get too windy. So did anybody happen to get the Arkansas Game and Fish calendar in the mail this week? Okay, I love my Arkansas Game and Fish. There's an alligator on the cover, and I looked at that and I saw that's a pretty big gator, and I looked up, where's that at? Well, it's at Millwood Lake, where we went down and worked the Arkansas QSO party. And so we called this our Poor Man D Expedition. And you can see our little map kind of tucked into the corner of the state. We were on a 4-county line, which was fantastic. 4 counties, everybody wants to look for you. I learned real quickly that Arkansas QSO party, everybody wants to talk to us if we're from Arkansas. It was wonderful. Probably some of the most fun I've ever had was the Arkansas QSO party. So we set up our tent, shot our antennas up some great pine trees down there. They were like 80 feet tall. Flat top, of course, a Carolina Wyndham, because Don Banta would have nothing else in his arsenal. But they work. And we operated for the whole 12 hours. It was fantastic. You can see we had 2 stations going, CW and sideband. And we loved the tent, but we eventually saw some storms rolling in. We got to operate actually for about, I think it was 8.5-ish, maybe not quite that long, but it was great. Really fun time, and the only way to really get better at that kind of thing is to get into that element, and there's nothing better than operating with other people. So I just want to invite anybody that's new, you can come over to my house anytime. And I like that idea, teaming up on things, because it's a lot more fun than doing it by yourself, especially if you're learning. And so I would love to make some mistakes with you if you want to come over and hang out with me, and we'll do some operating of sorts. So BVRC's been really great to me. They asked me to be the 911 coordinator. I just wanted to throw this out there. Tom mentioned this at the beginning of the meeting. We're looking for 2 folks that would like to help. And I think my first thought when he said that was, why would I do that? I don't know anything. And it was kind of the idea was I get to actually connect people with people that really know a lot about amateur radio. And that's kind of fun because I get to, and also I talked to somebody the other day about going out and maybe setting up in the park with some new equipment. Haven't had a chance to do that, but it's a good way to meet people and kind of learn about some equipment that's not yours, as well as and find out who's the expert or the Elmer in different situations. 2 things we really need. We need a public information officer, and we need somebody that's good with social media. And those are probably my 2 weak suits, especially social media. But if anybody's interested in that, I was going to say, if you'll talk to one of the officers or talk to Tom after the meeting, we've got a pretty good thing going here, 163 members, but man, I can't imagine what we could do if we had kind of a full roster of help. Another way, if you're looking for a way to serve the community, I think this is a lot of fun. And I know Don Cooper would be really happy if he had some, and he's faithful to show up there every month. We've even got one going at the Shiloh Museum for a second site, but VEs, I don't know if you're new, you may not have ever thought about that or looked into it as a kind of a teacher. I like that idea, that I could help kids maybe take the test. And so I looked into it. Turns out it's an open book test, which are my favorite personally. 40 questions. I highly recommend it. It takes about, I don't know, a couple hours to go in there, take the test, and become a VE. And so even if you're a general, you can still test on that first level, which I think is fantastic. I also got Laurel accreditations, and I don't know what exactly it takes to do that, but apparently you show them your ARRL accreditation and you get that. So, but it's fantastic, and I think that's a lot of fun. A good way to meet new people and make connections too. I was going to just tell you guys this. Next week, I'm going to head off to this. I applied for this ARRL Teachers Institute on wireless technology, and I'm really excited about that. So there's 14 teachers from all over the country going to Dayton, Ohio, to the Dayton Amateur Radio Club, and you spend a week there learning how to bring wireless technology into your classroom. They're even going to have like a VE session for people that don't have licenses. I'm super excited about that, to see about more ways that I can get K-12 students especially interested in amateur radio. And I want to leave you with kind of one thing real quick. I have the privilege of being the Elmer 911 coordinator. My email is vinsoncarter@gmail.com. And I think probably when I was a new ham, I would have been a little intimidated by this and to ask a question maybe like that. But hey, if you don't want to put it in the forum and have everybody see it, you can just email me directly and I'll connect you with somebody that probably knows, or fill out the form and then it automatically goes to a bunch of people that know way more than I do to begin with. And so that's kind of a nice feature on the website. And if you have any questions, newbies, even folks that maybe are watching the video, I would love to help connect you with someone that can help you with your situation that you might have. And I mentioned that helpful links thing. And for those of you that like QR codes, I just made, and I'll put that up for a second and then I'll show you. I just made a Google Doc that kind of has a link to some of the websites I talked about. For those of you that are seasoned veterans in amateur radio, you probably have a million other websites that are comparable, maybe even better, but those are the ones that have really helped me kind of figure things out a little bit better. But honestly, the only way to really learn things is get a good Elmer. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and I'm really thankful for those folks that have helped me, and I'll open it up. Anybody has any questions or comments or ridicule, Yes, sir, James.
Just a comment, Vincent. Contesting something for folks, especially who are new, is take a look at the VHF contesting out, and there's, I don't know, what, 4 or 5 every year today? This weekend.
Really?
CQ, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Simple equipment, get on the air, get up high if you can, it supports well. It's really a lot of fun. I mean, you get on 2 meters and workstation, you get a band opening on 2 or 6, it's really fun.
And it's been happening lately.
And it's happening.
I haven't caught it, but I've heard.
Yeah, 6 is opening up, 2 is opening up occasionally. We were doing it out in the Bay Area in California, going to the Santa Cruz Mountains. And one of the most fun events, we were working up and down the coast. We got some 2-meter band openings. We were hearing a station on Mauna Loa in Hawaii.
Wow.
But all I had was my 817 at 5 watts, and they could never hear us.
Okay.
We were trying for like an hour, but we could hear them really well.
That's fun.
So, that kind of thing happens. And out here, Arkansas, as you pointed out, is rare on all bands.
Yeah.
Band opening, people will be looking for it.
So somebody made the comment about Arkansas is kind of like a rare state, so that people were looking for worked all states are like super thankful to talk to somebody in Arkansas. Which,
I did that twice.
really?
Yep, twice. Oh my God, I finally got something from Arkansas.
That's fantastic. James, that's a good point. So I was just going to show you everybody this. This is my real simple, helpful links. One of the things I do have listed on there is the contest calendar website that kind of shows over a period. I kind of like to look ahead because, I don't know, sometimes it's hard for me to, I need to tell my wife some period of time ahead of time if I'm going to block out time. So it's good to look at that contest calendar, but it's nice to know that something like that's happening this weekend if you have a chance. And like you said, simple equipment. Great comment. Thanks. Yes, sir.
I got into the QRZ page, and you pay the $25, you get the whole thing. So this year they said to me, hey, your dues are up, and I said, okay, and I'm looking, well, for another $10 a year, you get the whole page without all the commercials, without all anything. It's just clean ham stuff.
Oh.
And it's unlimited amounts of looking up people. Because on the $25 one, you get to a certain part, and they'll stop you. So for $10, it's worth it to me.
Nice. I just have the free version, so I didn't pay for anything. Only thing I paid for was the logbook, which was totally worth that. So, but there's lots of free logbooks too for those of you.
Yeah, there are a lot of people. If you're on FTA and you're not on logbook, they won't respond.
True.
Yeah, because your flag.
Yeah.
Your flag is an LOTW user. They got a little flag for texting, but right now, if you got 6 meters, the big thing going on, people are moving from these rare grids. Like the last couple of days, you see the same guy over and over activating a different rare grid square. If you don't know what a grid is, it's a maidenhead grid square that divides us up even more than states.
Right.
But one of them was AG6EE, I think is one of them. Another one N7PHY. And what's cool is if you like pileups, these guys are sometimes driving, sometimes they're hiking into these rare grids because there's no roads. They'll put up like a 7-element beam and even high power, and they instant pileup. Steve, W5KI, was he got what I consider one of the ultimate awards called the Fred Fish Memorial Award, and it's 488 grids around North America, or actually the U.S., and he completed all those. And
nice.
And literally that, like one of them, guy drove down from Alaska. I worked him, I thought he was in Alaska. I got all excited. My last state on 6. Turns out he's on the way to Key West. There's a grid square just beyond a museum that you have to take a ferry. So he took his ferry and activated that grid square for 2 days.
Huh.
And so that's just some of the stuff you can do.
There's one in the Santa Cruz area, I think, a grid square that just barely comes on land. It's only like 25% of the grid squares on the coast. So people will go there and operate from that one as well. So
that's fun.
Stuff like that.
That's the great thing about having a good logging program, right? It tells you what grid scares you need, what zones. I like that feature. Counties, all those types of things. So. All right. Yes, sir.
When do you predict that Boyd will get his license?
Oh, well, I don't know. Thomas, how old are you now? 11. You're 11. I'm going to say maybe when he's 18. I don't know. This guy, he's amazing.
I got my license when I was 9.
9. Did you really? That's amazing. 9 years old. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have seen that video of Thomas on the Facebook, but it's pretty great. I would love to get my son into it. He walks around. I gave him my little, Chinese radio hand mic that I bought, which I realized really quick was terrible, and as most hand mics are. I should have mentioned that as something I learned really quickly too. Having a good microphone and an antenna is way more important than anything else. But
Every time I pass your house, as I agree with Boyd, I honk my horn in Morse code, the first letter of my name.
he's getting it by osmosis. We hear it. He carries that thing around and has conversation. So I'm hopeful that one day he'll be really into it. It's pretty funny. Yes, sir.
Vinson, you shared earlier that you were kind of nerdy growing up, and it is really cool for the rest of us, especially those of us who have been hams for decades, many decades, to see your level of excitement that it's something that you discovered that you can do with several family members.
It is fun.
You didn't tell the group that. Who is it in your family who has parents who are hams?
Jerry, Whiskey 5 JRO. His parents are both extras out in Colorado, Arizona sometimes. They've been able to talk to him. I think we talked to him down at Millwood Lake. It was a lot of fun.
So my question is, what would you share as an educator teaching so many different personality styles and having some really unique observations of to-be teachers in your classrooms? What would you say to the non-technical types in the room who are relatively new in the hobby? How can they catch your level of enthusiasm and enjoy the hobby the way you do?
That is a wonderful question. I've actually tried to get a few students to catch that bug, and I haven't found the secret. I'm hoping, and I put that as kind of why I really want to go to that Teachers Institute as my biggest motivator. And there are, out of the 14 people going, 6 of the teachers are extras, and we all got to share kind of a little bit about us. And the 6 of us, that was one of the things we put is what can you do to help us get our students more excited? And it's a great mix. I mean, there's some elementary teachers, and I work with a lot of elementary teachers. That's a challenge. For junior high and high school future teachers, I don't think that would be as hard. I just don't have I'm not around those many students, but I'm looking for those answers. But I think, if it's a hobby, it's fun. I think the FT8 side, if somebody sees it, would think, that's pretty cool. Those people that are interested in traveling that may not have the opportunity to do that, I think it's exciting to talk to somebody in another country. And I've heard you're, talking about friends you've made and connections you've made and getting to operate in other countries. That's exciting to me.
You were talking about me about the FTA comment, weren't you?
No. I'll tell everybody this too. I've heard a lot of people on HF especially talk about all those no-code extras, and I always, when they do that, I always say, well, I'm a no-code extra, but I think you guys, I really do think that I'm going to take that CW class, and I'm excited I made it on the list. Thank you. And I've been asking about that for like a year and a half now. So I think it's the secret.
One of my observations about you is that you've never been bashful with your questions. And for those of us who have been hams for many, 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 many years, if we could leave you with one thing, it would be to do what Vinson has done, and that is ask tons of questions. There are no stupid questions. That
I agree-
alone
I
will
agree.
get you further down the road.
There are stupid questions, but don't be afraid to ask. But I think CW, I think it's the secret. I just watching people operate, I'm like, man, if I could just do that. One, it's fast, contact-wise. The contest, I feel like I'm out of the loop. I want to be in the club, so that's my goal next. I've never been good at languages, so I've tried. Anyways, thank you all for letting me present. I appreciate it. Okay. I was going to put this back up.
So I'd like to present this certificate of appreciation to you
Thanks.
for a fine presentation. And
Thanks. I bet he's going to want to get a
Oh,
picture.
okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys, for your patience.